Hello, welcome to Speech Talk Live. This is episode number 16. My name is Jay Yoza, and I'm the host of this show. And today we have Julie Finkelstein, and there she is, she's waving, and Latesh Balakrishna from Cochin, India. I think I got it right. Uh, yeah, the purpose of, and I'm based out of Hazlet, New Jersey, which is about 40 miles from New York City. And one of the things about this program is that we kind of complement this Coursera course called Introduction to Public Speaking that's taught by Dr. Matt McGarrity from University of Washington. We don't duplicate everything that he's doing because he does a fantastic job in the course, but we take a different approach, which is non-academic approach to public speaking. So it's more kind of different in a sense that we look at how we actually give speeches in real life and how to become a confident speaker. And the purpose of this particular show is simple. It's to learn, to teach, to share, and also to support. And today's agenda, once I go through the introduction, is we'll have a quick intro from Julie and Latesh. And then what we do is, this is a public speaking, we usually will start and give a 3-minute talk on any topic. And one of the things I'm going to try to bring out is that when you give your 3-minute talk, the objective is you're going to stop after 3 minutes, but you got to be so compelling that somebody wants to know more. And obviously you're not going to get a chance to give more than 3 minutes, but that's what you want to get to, that you've got 3 minutes, but they want more information because you were so compelling. So today's agenda is basically all Steve Jobs. The reason I made this theme all Steve Jobs is because every time I review introductory speeches on Coursera's on-demand platform, I would say about 50%, maybe a little bit less, I would say close to 50% cite Steve Jobs as a speaker they look up to. So I thought today we will review 3 of his speeches. These speeches come later in his life, so these are not from the time when he started Apple. These are when he came to Apple the second time. The first one is the Stanford speech that he gives, the commencement address. The second one is the iPhone launch. And the third one is the last speech he publicly gives before his death. It was 4 months before he died. And the reason we're doing this on Steve Jobs is because, let's face it, he's an acknowledged great speaker. So we want to learn some of the techniques that he uses. What does he do well, and what can we take away from some of the things that he does? So that's the program. At this point, I'll have Julie and Latesh do a quick introduction, and then we'll get to our 3-minute short speech, and then we'll get going with our Steve Jobs program today. Julie?
Hi, thanks, Jay. Hi, Latesh. Hello, everybody. Yes, in view of today's theme of Steve Jobs, Steve Jobs is known as a new visionary, and his ideas are learned from Buddhism. So I am a Buddhist in the sense that I study Zen and practice Zen for about 20 years with teachers, different teachers. And I continue to practice on my own. I am right now in the middle of practice without a teacher. So today's talking about Steve, I'm going to talk about some of the Buddhist influences that I see from his speeches. Thank you.
Latesh?
Hi, so my name is Latesh Balakrishna, and I am based out from Kochi, India. I've been participating in this platform for the past almost 2 months now, and I find this particular platform to be very helpful in improving my public speaking skills. The team here, Jay, Judy, Soumyan, are like, we have a great rapport, and we actually have a lot of constructive feedback from each other, and it has been a tremendous support, in terms of improving the skills that we need to have in our professional area as well as the personal life with respect to improvements in the public talk. So yeah, that's about it. Thanks, Jay. Over to you.
Okay, Latesh, thanks. Okay, guys, you kept it real short. I really appreciate it. We're getting good at this. Okay, so at this point, we're going to move to our prepared 3-minute speech. And this could be on any topic. It could be on something you experienced. It could be something that you read, could be something you watched on TV, some observation you made, the observation that you are making, things like that. So this is not this is pretty much up to you. So I'll go first, and Julie, if I exceed 3 minutes, just give me some indication. Uh, my talk is we've all seen that experiment we've all heard about, right? Where they tell you to, where they have these people that are throwing basketball, and they make you just ask you to focus on how many times the passes are being made, and while you're doing that, in middle, there'll be somebody in the gorilla outfit that'll go right across, and they found that 50% of the people will never see that gorilla. Okay, so why am I telling you this? I think I ran into something. I ran into something like that from my personal experience. So here's what happened. A few weeks ago, my son and daughter, they were starting. My son was starting school, and my daughter goes to work every morning, and they had to get some items for groceries so they could make their lunch the next for work and school. So they said in the evening, Dad, we need some grocery items. So they gave me a list and said, okay, can you get it? It was getting late in the evening. It was probably like close to around 8:30 or 9 o'clock in the evening. So I said, okay, I'll get it. So I go there to the grocery store, and as soon as I enter, this guy is like screaming at me, like, hey, you can't enter from that door, or something like that. And I was like, okay. So right away, I'm like, this is not getting off to a good start. And I had to go around and enter. Okay, so that's not a big deal, but again, this is something that I had not expected, never happened, but it suddenly, boom, this guy's like screaming at me. And I'm going in the supermarket, and now I'm having difficulty finding these items because I don't like taking a list. I just know exactly what I want. I know exactly where it is. And this is a store that I'm not even that familiar with because I go to a different store. Okay, and then all of a sudden, as I'm going through the aisle, I run into somebody that I worked with when I was at Board of Education, and we started chatting, and I'm like, now can't remember this guy's name. So suddenly I have got two things I have to remember. One is I have to go through this item list, the list that my kids have given me, and now I can't even remember this guy's name. Okay, so now I get to the cashier. There were two items that I just couldn't even find, so I said, enough of it. I'm just going to just pay the cashier and go home. Okay. As I'm leaving the supermarket, I can't find my car. I'm like, wait a second. There are not that many cars here. What happened to my car? I drove it here. I can't find it. I'm looking like, I look kind of stupid because I'm going from one area of the parking lot to another, and I'm like all over the place, and I can't find my car. I said, what are these people must be thinking? Like, why is this guy not know where his car is? And then I finally said, you know what? Should I call the policeman, say that my car got stolen? And I said, you know what, before I do that, let me just call my wife. And I called my wife and I said, honey, I can't find my car. And she said, do you know what car did you take to the grocery store? That's when it hit me that what happened was the car that I normally take was not the car that I took to the grocery store. I took my daughter's car because she had parked it behind my car. So I took that car, but I had completely forgotten the car that I had taken. So the point I'm making is that when you have too many tasks, you got to be very careful because sometimes something as simple as knowing the car that you brought, you'll forget it, and then you're going to be in a really embarrassing situation. So it really hit me hard. Like sometimes you always hear about this, that you should only do single tasking. Multitasking is not good for you. You're not very productive. So I learned the hard way that next time, be focused on one thing. Otherwise, you could be in an embarrassing situation like me. And now I'm a butt of jokes from my wife, thinking that, I'm getting old. So that's not fun either. Well, so there's my story. Julie, you want to go?
Yes, thanks, Jay. So to answer your story, Suzuki from Zen School, again, that Steve Jobs studies with, he says most people want to kill two birds with one stone. In Zen, we want to kill one bird with one stone. So there you go. So I got my timer, but please keep an eye on me. So today, in view of, again, that Jay has invited us to talk about body posture or some aspect of speech, and then today's Steve Jobs, I want to talk about confidence and ease of posture, because last week we talked about the fact that in many interactions that people make impressions of you before you even utter your words. So how do you communicate who you are? And a lot of who you are is rendered in how comfortable you are, how easy, relaxed, and I like to use the term for today, just confident and ease and confidence. So there are aspects of body gesture that can help that. Today I'm going to talk about the body and mind to present our presence of ease and comfort. And of course, that doesn't just go into public speaking, but every aspect of any interaction, right? So with the aspect to body, you know that you're very comfortable when you're lounging in a chair. There's complete ease, and you're safe, so you might not feel confident, but you're certainly comfortable. But in a public arena, we want to shift into confidence and ease rather than comfortable and ease. So how do you do that? The first thing is to get into the place of ease and relaxation, and that's body posture. If you're standing, you want to stand on the top third of your foot. There's a little spot that is it's called the bubbling spring in Chinese. But if you stand on the ball of your feet, you will naturally be both buoyant and stable. And then if you take that energy and just use alignment of gravity, which I talked about, you can bring it up to your knees, to your head, all the way to your head, the crown of your head. And you will find that in Japanese, when I was taking a saw class, is that there is a spot that there's no effort and the saw stands up, right? So you want to find that place for your body, and then you relax. You don't waste energy, so you're relaxed and you're easy. And then the second question is, how do you project confidence? And I think that confidence, you come with making yourself in your mind's eye that you're strong and big. So you can take a nice deep breath in and visualize yourself being bigger than your normal self, right? So with this, I'm down to about 7 seconds, so I'm going to wrap it up, is that when you take a posture of confidence and ease, people will feel that's what you're about and will be attracted to your presence. So thank you.
Wow, that's right on time. She's got the time all.
Got the time thing.
All right, Latesh, you're next.
Okay. All right. So before I start my timer, I would like to declare that I came totally unprepared, and I was like, I forgot about the 3 minutes talk we are supposed to give. But anyways, I take Julie's sense of being confident, and I'll talk about the agenda today, and specifically what we have today is like 3 topics on 3 areas wherein like we're going to actually cross and slice and dice Steve Jobs speeches. So I would like to talk for 3 minutes on one particular facet of Steve Jobs which was not there in these videos. So my time starts now. Right, so Steve Jobs, we all know, like the great personality, founder chairman of Apple Inc. He is a very creative person, and he has this enormous passion for perfection. But there is also another facet to his personality, and he was like, as a perfectionist, he was also kind of very ruthless in his approach. And once he had a particular agenda, a particular idea in mind, he used to ensure that that particular thing is completely done to perfection by the team. So no matter what it takes, but then he was really ruthless to make sure that the work gets done and it is done with the highest level of perfection. Now there is a background to it. Actually, there is one small story wherein, I mean, a small incident in his life. Rather, I wouldn't call it a small incident. It's a life-shaping incident wherein he had been in India in 1974, and he was here for almost 2 years. And that was the period, that is the flower generation, the hippie period. So he came to India in search of spiritual enlightenment, and he was in search of one specific Baba, I think Karoli Baba. So he was looking for this Baba, and he actually had a very different image of India. But when he landed up here and he found that what's the actual reality, so much of poverty, so much of crime, and he actually lost all his money and savings, and he finally, when he just landed up in the place where he was supposed to meet the Baba, he found that he had already passed away. So, and then on top of that, there were incidents wherein like he was famished, and he was struggling. I mean, they were two of them who had come to India, he and his another companion, and they had a very tough time. And in fact, the Indian citizens with whom they were interacting were not very kind to him. So all that really shattered his beliefs. And it was like very painful incident, which he probably doesn't give too much of importance as well. But then this trauma that he went through in India actually shaped his personality a bit. So not, I would say, to a major extent. So he became this perfection obsessed personality, and who's like always going for that great product with complete set of features, etc., which is the best in the world, best in the standards, with like, the best people. So all this has come with some kind of background. So I would say that when any of us goes through certain circumstances, that actually changes our outlook towards life, and that change, maybe for the good or the bad, but teaches us a lot of life's lessons, which can be implemented, at a later stage. So that's about it. Thanks, Jay. Over to you.
Okay, thanks, Latesh. That was excellent. Very good insight there. The only thing is you just went a little bit over, I think. So next time. But I think you did prepare for that. It sounded like you prepared. Anyway. All right, we'll take a brief pause and then we'll get started with segment number 1. Okay? Okay, welcome to Speech Talk Live episode number 16, segment number 1. And as I indicated that this particular episode, we're focusing on, the theme is Steve Jobs, and we're going to look at 3 speeches of Steve Jobs that he gave right after 2005. So one is the Stanford one is the one we're going to review right now. So this was the this commencement address that Steve Jobs gave in 2005 to the Stanford University graduates. This was a speech. I did a little research on this. This was a speech that he was kind of really struggling with. Initially, he wanted to not give it, and he sought some help actually to give this speech from Aaron Sorkin. He's a movie director and a screenplay writer. And it was really struggle, like how should he give this speech, because he's been asked, it's pretty prestigious to give a commencement speech all over the world, especially in the United States, and to a university like Stanford right out of Silicon Valley. And he takes an approach here that I think we can all follow whenever we're in a similar situation. And what he does is that he basically wants to give 3 lessons to the graduates, right? And to convey those 3 lessons, he starts out the speech by telling them something very simple. And he starts out like this. He said, today, quote, "Today I want to tell you 3 stories from my life." And that, I think, is very important. People when you're giving a speech, people want to basically relate to you. They want to know what you went through. And if you can tell your own personal story, it becomes very compelling. And he uses these three stories to make three important points in that speech. One is that you can't connect dots, as he calls it, looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. That's the first point that he's making. And again, the point he's making is related to his story regarding how he was adopted and how it turned out so different from what his parents, the people that were his parents were giving him for adoption wanted and what it turned out to be. And again, then he talks about this course he took on calligraphy, and he changed the computing industry. And again, the point he's making is that these things happen. You have to be open for these type of experiences, and then you can connect the dots. The second point he's making here is that you got to find what you love. And this, again, goes back to his personal story and how he started Apple, then he was let go, but he still loved computers, and eventually he came back to Apple, and again he created the second revolution with iPod, iPhone, etc. So that's another lesson that he's sending to the graduates. And the third important lesson that he gives, and these are all extremely important lessons in such a short speech that he gives, and it's a genius on how much he's able to convey in this speech. It's about death. And one of the things, again, this is a personal story. At that time, he is fighting cancer. He had just been contracted, found out that he had pancreatic cancer, just gotten some treatment. And when he gave this speech, he was feeling much better. He thought he had made a recovery. As it turned out, that wasn't the complete case. He had a relapse, and then he did not survive. And one of the things he says is this quote I have here. He said, "Death is very likely the single best invention of life. It is life's change agent." And he's telling the graduates, your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. And then he concludes this speech that a lot of us always cite, and he concludes with the call to action, saying to the students, stay hungry, stay foolish. So this was a different kind of speech where you don't see him moving around. It's behind a podium. It's a prepared speech. Yet you could sense that he's not comfortable in that type of setting. He likes to move and kind of use his gestures and all that. But for this particular, he can't do it. So he makes the most of it. So the content has to pretty much carry the day here. And the content does carry the day. So this is a different kind of Steve Jobs than what we were used to seeing with the product launches. This is a message that he's trying to convey to the graduates. So the content has to be overpowering, and what makes that work is how he weaves the three lessons through his own personal stories. So that's what I think that we can all take away on how he does it. So if we find ourselves in a similar situation where somebody says, Julie, Latesh, can you come and talk about meditation? The best way to do that is what the technique that he's using. Find some one or two or three personal stories and make the points. Julie, do you have any, what is your take on this speech? What comments do you have?
Yeah, thanks, Jay, and hello, everybody, again. Yes, I think you made all the great points about his story. So I would just say that what he says is, okay, I'll give a little bit background who he is. He is apparently known for his Buddhist kind of visionary, and what he's really talking about here is trust your gut. You know, he says you cannot connect the dots of the future. You have to trust your gut. And so in all three stories, he's talking about being true to your own self. So in the second one, he's talking about the idea of that law sometimes is the greatest gift, which is again kind of connects to the idea you can't tell what the story means you can't tell what this experience means at the moment, because some of the worst things in life could be your greatest gift, right? Because he talks about um, also that losing Apple was the biggest gift of his life because he could be a beginner again. He felt heavy with the responsibilities of running a big organization, which was not his passion. So by doing that, he reconnect with his passion, with his gut, right? He stayed in there in Cupertino because he still loved it. And then finally, at the end, he carries through that Zen message of live your life. Don't let people, don't let other people's expectations define you. Don't use the dogma. So one of the basic Zen teachings or Buddhist teachings is even the teachings is a pile of crap, right? Because you want to even burn that away. And interestingly, in Asian martial arts and Zen practice, there's a word called the hara, and the hara is a gut, but they're not talking about the physical organs. They're not talking about the livers and the spleen. They're talking about that as an energy center that you can cultivate for concentration and power, right? So when I talk about in the first session that when you stand in alignment with that gravity, that opens up the energy center so that you can start. That's the first step. The second step is collecting power, collecting energy. So when he teaches you that live with your gut, he is really teach, and then don't trust other people, trust your gut. He is going to the very fundamental teachings of how to live your life in alignment with your own true self and find out who you really are. And to me, that is a core Zen teaching. So with that, I'll turn back over to you.
Oh, excellent. That's a really nice perspective on that. Yeah, I didn't. You're absolutely right. He was very highly influenced by Buddhism. Yeah, so that's a good input there, Julie. Latesh?
Yeah, hi. So this particular speech, which was given at Stanford University's commencement address, so it really stands out as one of the masterpiece addressing by Steve. So what is more important here is like he had just been Jay, you mentioned like he had just been out from coming out from his surgery. So it seemed like he was reading out directly from the sheet. Probably was not prepared, but then he covered it up completely with the three instances that he has given from his life. And those stories are something I think it's like it's legendary stories now. And he is a legend. He is a great legend. So the stories really touches each and everyone who have heard him on his video or who would have read his articles about this particular stories. I mean, nobody can actually leave out without mentioning these three instances from his life. So the first one is like connecting the dots, wherein he says that I mean, for him his life it's a great example of how much of struggle he had been through. So still he was able to come out very successfully, and he was able to establish a great venture. So when he says that it is really like he didn't know in the future how it's going to be happening. So he just went with what he was passionate about. So there was nothing like he had anything, any plan as such, like how he would be able to connect the dots. But then when he looks back, he's able to see that those dots, those particular areas of his life are very, very precisely and correctly getting matched, and the dots are getting connected so well. So he says that it is looking backwards, maybe 10 years or 15 years later, when he's giving this speech, he's able to see that particular connections happening. But if it had been looking forward, he wouldn't have been able to see that those dots perfectly getting aligned. So he says that somehow you need to trust your destiny. You need to trust your karma, and that is what has made a lot of difference to his life. So loving what you love to do, And after that, it's about love and loss. So since he had seen that he had been out from the same institute which he had nurtured and grown, so then he went on to start another entity, Pixel, and next successful animation studios. So looking back, it seemed like he was when he says that when life hits us with a break, or like it's like a bitter medicine. But what happens? It's like a medicine. So what he has gained from this particular exercise is that he got the love of his life. So he found his wife when he was out from Apple. So that actually probably that loss that he had actually incurred by leaving or being thrown out from Apple actually was in a sense it was like a gain for him in terms of love. So he says that when you believe that something is great work, and if you don't you don't settle with what you're doing now, you still keep digging, so that you find that particular opportunity, that particular work, which will make you feel better and better. And the third instance, which is more like so this is about the death aspect, and he says that if he always used to look into the mirror and he says that if today was the last day of my life, how would I change what I'm doing now? So that's something that he actually always kept reminding himself that my time is limited here, so I need to change somebody else's life. So he followed his heart and he did everything that was required. So now all these stories, if we tie it together, was given during this at Stanford. So basically, what he wanted to give is like motivate the students, give them some kind of a carrot, some kind of a kind of hope. Wherein, like he says that if I have been able to achieve something from nothing, you guys are still graduated. You are in a much better position. So always, and he gives this. He ends the entire speech by saying, "Stay hungry, stay foolish." So I think that actually that's a very powerful statement in itself. So I stop here. Over to you, Jay. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Litesh. Hey, Somyan, thanks for joining us. We're just reviewing Steve Jobs' speech at Stanford. So if you want to use this opportunity to say something, go right ahead.
Yeah, I liked all the three speeches. They also sort of indicated his perhaps health condition. He was perhaps much more careful during Apple iPhone launch. Then this commencement speech, he was a little sick, and I think the town hall meeting or whatever, he really looked absolutely sick. Okay, so that's one kind of indicator that came through. Fine. In the commencement speech, the final thing that he left with is stay hungry, stay foolish. I couldn't understand the stay foolish part, but I think it was a good speech, a good motivational speech. Otherwise, I really didn't understand what stay foolish meant. Okay, so maybe he wanted to say that. I mean, if you don't ask questions, you remain foolish. So people are generally encouraged to ask questions so that they overcome whatever lack of knowledge they have. I wonder what you people made out of that second part of the slogan.
Yeah. So the way I understood it is that what he's saying is stay foolish. Is that the way I understand it is that don't, if you're going to do something that other people are not going to accept, then they're going to think you're a fool, right? And that's what usually happens. It kind of goes back to this Apple campaign called Think Different that basically defined Apple when he came back the second time. And in that campaign, he uses all these different figures that really inspired him. And one of them was Gandhi. And it kind of goes back to what Gandhi says, that whenever you do something in the beginning, people are going to make fun of you. Then they're going to, like, I forgot the exact quote, and eventually you win, right? In the beginning, whatever you do, like our show here, Speech Talk Live, people
I think
are going
it went something like that. First they oppose you, then they ridicule you, then they start following you, something like that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that famous quote by Gandhi. And that's what I understand, that stay foolish part of it, is that if you let other people talk you down saying, hi, this idea that you're having this show is so stupid, but yeah, that's how it starts. You got to be foolish to do it, because otherwise, if it was all well understood, then why would you do it? You would just be like everybody else, like, somebody's already done it. That's how I understand that whole foolish part of it. And you also have to be hungry, so they kind of go together. That was based on what this magazine had at the back, and he said I always remembered that always followed that quote. It always stuck in my head that you got to be hungry and you got to be foolish. Because if you're not foolish, then why even do it? Because somebody will always talk. Your brain will, your head will always talk you out of doing something. So that's what that call to action is. But overall, I think that this speech is considered one of the best commencement speech ever given. And each of the lessons are deep. They are really deep if you look at it. And he does it in such a short amount of time, about 15 minutes, I think the speech is. And the reason the speech has to be read is because of it's a commencement speech. It has to be almost, that is the traditional way of delivering these commencement speech. And that's why I included it, because later on we'll see him in a different mode altogether with the iPhone launch, where he has no script. And that's where you can see this is what really is. But it's 3 different speeches, but if you're going to be a good speaker, you have to be able to adjust based on. Sometimes you can say, well, I'm not going to speak behind a lectern, but you don't have a choice. You have to do it. And this was his way of showing that he is so flexible that he can give a speech when he's behind the lectern, whether he's on a stage in front of thousands of people, or when he has to go in a position where he has to speak to the power, as he does in the 3rd speech with the council. So anyway, let's have a closing thought. Julie, any closing thought on this speech before we move on to the next one?
Yes, thank you. Soumya, from what I talk about the stay hungry, stay foolish, it comes from Suzuki in one of the books that he apparently really studies. It was a revolutionary book at the time called Zen Mind, Beginner's Mind. He says, in the expert's mind, the options are few, but in the beginner's mind, the options are infinite. So to stay foolish is kind of have a beginner's mind without any opinions, but just kind of look at something from a fresh perspective. But I really appreciate what Jay said about what Gandhi said. And I think you said it was think different, right? I'm going to look up that. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Latesh, and then Soumya, closing thoughts?
Yes, I think this talk was one of the hallmark speeches given by Steve. And coming to Soumyan's point of stay hungry, stay foolish, I think that's a very strong phrase. Actually, it has been used very prominently by great thinkers. But what it actually means, according to me, is like stay hungry is like you always need to have that hunger within you, that kind of earnest feeling to do something that keeps you wanting more and more. And staying foolish is like you always act without thinking and taking unnecessary risks. Probably that's what Steve did, taking risks throughout his life. But that's what made him successful. So that's what this particular statement, "Stay hungry, stay foolish," means. That's according to me. Thanks, Jay.
Okay, great. Soumya?
Okay, that reminds me of kind of a tour I took along with my managing director some 25 years back. We went to France. We visited a company which is to one of the critical components that we were using. And I was a sort of technical expert in that situation. So when I was talking, it was usual for me to show my knowledge, that I knew something about. So I used to ask some leading questions, or when they were answering, I would, if I understood what they mean, I would immediately say, yeah, I understand. Okay, without even letting them complete. So my boss was perhaps not so as familiar with the technology as I was. So he was sort of pulling me back all the time, saying that, look, don't try to show your knowledge. I mean, remain as if you don't know anything about it. Let them say it. Let them say it. Let them say it. Okay. So if you try to show your knowledge, I think people don't say as much as when you behave as if you are a fool. Perhaps it's also not quite true. Sometimes if you show that you know something, other people will say something more about a topic. Otherwise, they may say that this guy may be at a very, very base level and stop it with a very, very brief introduction. So in order to encourage people to say a little more, I had to, in later days, I did show some of my knowledge, and but then never showed it to a level as if I have some amount of expertise in that. Okay, so that's the kind of behavior I also cultivated. I am reminded of that. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, so at this point we'll take a brief pause, and then we'll review this speech on iPhone launch, okay? Okay, welcome to Speech Talk Live, episode number 16, and we're moving to segment number 2. And in this segment, we're going to review Steve Jobs' I think one of his famous speech. He has given a lot of famous speeches, but this was the iPhone product launch that a lot of people always cite as probably one of the best product launch speech ever given. I mean, Steve Jobs has done so many things well, and even his speeches are considered like a product. And so this was when he announced the launch of iPhone and kind of really ushered in this new era of the smartphones and how we work today. And one of the things that I noticed is I didn't look at the long speech that I had included. I just looked at the short speech because I wanted to know how much I can get out of that short speech when he's just introducing the iPhone. I don't know what he talks about afterwards. I did not get a chance to view that. And even though this product, this is interesting, this product was the first version of iPhone. After seeing that speech, I want that phone, I don't know if you got that feeling, the way he's describing it. And of course, now we're into iPhone, because Apple just announced a week ago, maybe, or 2 weeks ago, iPhone 6S. But what Steve Jobs is introducing is iPhone 1, I believe. And as he's describing that product and what it can do for you, I'm like, wait a second, I want that phone, not the new one that was just introduced a few weeks ago. So it just goes to show how much enthusiasm and passion makes such a huge difference in what you're doing and what you're launching. And some of the techniques that he uses is that when he's describing a particular feature, Steve Jobs has this unique technique that, if you noticed it, that he does so well. He always uses these words, these emphatic or zippy words, as they call them, where he'll say, "Isn't this wonderful?" Like he's like saying, "Isn't this wonderful? Like, look at me, I'm having so much fun. I can do so much with it." And the audience is basically kind of channeling the audience, and that's what the audience is thinking, and he's going to say it for them. And then I noted down some of the other things he says. He always has this emphasis, like once he makes a point, then he lets you know what is really the thing that you should take away, like really big. Like I think it was the screen size he was talking about. Then he uses words like gorgeous. These are the kind of words that we would use. It's like somewhat like you can say kind of childlike, but that's what it is. He's like a child. Like this is how I'm thinking of this product. Like really nice, pretty cool, incredible, unbelievable. These are some of the words that I jotted down. And these words he always uses right after he tells you something technical about the product. He will then sum it up with saying, "Isn't this gorgeous? Isn't this wonderful? This is a pretty cool device." And all of that makes you think like, wow, yeah, it is pretty cool. I can see that using it. I want that product too. And I think that that technique of his is common if you look at it even later on when he's giving his last speech. That technique still remains with him. So at this point, I like, as I said, this is if you want to ever do a product launch, this is the speech you got to see. in how to get people excited so they're talking about your product. That no matter whether they look at this product years from now, they're going to say, I still want that product. How do I get that product? And unfortunately, you can't get that product because now we're into iPhone 6. But the way he launches that product should remain current, no matter whether you were there that day or whether you view it maybe 10 years from now. You still want that product because of the way he describes it and the passion that he shows and the enthusiasm he shows for that product. Julie, any thoughts on that?
Yes, thanks. Staying with the Zen theme and adding to it this idea of high tech and high touch. And thank you, Jay, because I think you really pointed out the humanistic words, and I'll link that back into my idea. So Nesbitt, in a book called Megatrends, he talked about the idea of high tech and high touch, which is like if you launch something like a brand new technology, you really want to make it accessible to human beings. Okay, so you want to link that foreign object into something that into the human element of passion and comfort and ease. So I found that Steve was able to do that really amazingly, right? Because he interspersed, he did this thing I call a bridge or a link. So he, on the one hand, he uses words that you said, like cool, gorgeous, easy, and don't you just love it? And he emulates that with his tone. There's a lot of times you hear that tone of variation. So he's very human and very passionate and very alive. On the other hand, he induces really technical ideas, right? Pixels, proximity, accelerators, the videos going from portrait to landscape. Those are not the languages of everyday people. But what he did do is he created that bridge, because every time he talked about that feature, he explained it, and you see it, you feel it, you hear it, and then he gives you the technology term. So for common people, they really feel like they're plugging into this technology stream of high art and high possibilities. So I think he wasn't just selling the iPhone, which itself was a revolutionary product, but he sold into people's passion for being part of the in-group of leading-edge technology. Because after they watch that message and they buy the phone, they can talk about cool things like pixels, how many pixels there are, and the videos can go from portrait to landscape, and that there is automatic ambient lighting sensors. So the people who are not technical, all of a sudden they learn the whole technical vocabulary. So in that sense, he was also an educator, and he brought people into the whole new way of life. Not only through not only through technology, but he had a vision of what's possible, and then he educated people into that possibility. And so to me, that's also very Zen, because the words he used are very sweet. And one of his major teachers, Kumbum, who did the marriage ceremony, is known for depth and sweetness. So I think there's a lot of, as you said, there's a lot of depth to this. Thank you.
Yeah, that was excellent, Julie. I felt like I was listening to Steve Jobs there, the way you were reviewing that. So you're already picking up some of the techniques that he's using. Latesh?
Yeah, I agree with Jay. I was actually looking forward to the next iPhone version from Julie. Great. Yes, I think Julie and Jay almost covered all the points that I was planning to talk about. So I will just bring in some other perspective to what Steve's presentation was about. Steve's, I mean, as you mentioned, Jay, this is one of the best product launches that I have ever seen. And in fact, this video I had seen a couple of times earlier too, and I really love the way he actually presents it. Specifically, like the three important components that he actually introduces. One is the iPod, and second he's talking about the phone, and third he's talking about how internet in your hands. Everything is just at the in this particular mobile phone. You are going to access all these three instances. So now, if you look at the way this particular industry has shaped up, mobile industry has actually it has been a great breakthrough. Technically, this was one of what do you call it, a major breakthrough, major invention of the century, I would say, this development of the iPhone. And the kind of disruptions it has brought into the industry, right, from the music industry, gaming industry, the internet-based, the industries, the mobile industry, the application development for the development teams, so the application development industry. I mean, the entire set of developing developers who are creating this on the iOS platform. The cameras, you can just now you don't need actually a camera to just go and have a separate bag with four big cameras and all bulky cameras. Now with your phone you are able to do all these activities. So it has been a great disruption to the entire to a lot of industries across the globe. And it is the benchmark product. Even now, if you look at the quality and the fineness in which the mobile phone has been designed and made, right from the first version of iPhone to the latest 6G version, so each and every product is like it stands out. It stands out from all the other competitors they have. So right from the Macintosh, where they changed the entire computer industry, and about 1984, 2001, the iPod, they lost the iPod. I remember even now, like when I went to US, I purchased a small iPod, and it's there even now with me. And one good thing about that, it was so customized that I could actually put a specific personal message on the iPod, so that when I'm running, etc., I can see that message. So that was really nice of him to think about those kind of small things. And another thing is, like, if nobody has noticed, the iPhone in general is very light, and it is very easy to carry. So specifically, if you are doing some kind of fitness activities, and especially if you're doing some running, etc., right? So easy to carry. It's very light, and it's like very feature rich. Like you can have so many apps on iOS platform which you can use for tracking your fitness related stuff. So it's great. It's wonderful, and it's the way he has actually presented it is like so beautifully done. I'm just falling short of words to describe. All right, thanks, Jay.
All right, excellent, Litesh. Samir?
Sorry about the background noise. Somebody is celebrating the Vinayaka Chaturthi here. So I think the last 2-3 days have been very noisy in this neighborhood. I hope that noise is not affecting whatever I am talking. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Yeah, bring them into the talk.
Okay, fine. This is definitely a very heavily scripted speech, very well rehearsed. He was not winging it. He was, even though he was not behind a podium or whatever, he certainly was delivering very well rehearsed speech. Okay, so he was even, I think even things like that, incoming call coming through was very well timed. Somebody had been asked to call him, and he has just made a call, and he was talking. An incoming call had to come. The other person had to be put on wait, and he had to take the call. All that. It was just an opportunity to demonstrate that. Okay, so I think Steve Jobs was always about ergonomics and aesthetics, and that's one area where he is specialized. And he was inspired by Hewlett Packard. Yeah, Hewlett Packard is a place where he had apparently done some internship, etc. He describes about that, I think, in the third speech. HP was at that time very well known for its ergonomics of all its products. Even though they were making things like oscilloscopes, etc., the size of the button, the placement of all the features, the knobs, and things like that, they were supposed to be a class apart. I also used to be very heavily inspired by HP's ergonomic design. I was a product designer around that time too. So I can really see how Steve was inspired by HP. They were definitely a benchmark. Okay, Steve was definitely a marketing guy, and he uses the customer experience and customers feel and things like to the hill. he always wants to get the customer excited. Okay, that's what he's trying to do in this. He was actually trying to tell them you are getting a lot more than what you are looking for. He starts off as if he's introducing 3 new products he's launching, and then say all the 3 are built into one. Okay, that is a kind of a sudden realization that he makes them to do. Initially he describes like individual products, and individually they seem exciting, and then now he says look, all 3 are into one. Okay, so that kind of stuff. And then there is one anecdote I have heard of Steve Jobs. Apparently, someone came to make a presentation to him about a new feature to be introduced. This new feature was supposed to be something like a backup, backing up your files, etc. And then the guy who was in charge of drawing out the specification, he comes with a very, very long speech, comes to prepared with a lot of slides and a lot of information. Maybe he wanted to talk for about half an hour or whatever. But then when he actually came to meet Steve, Steve was saying, well, what is there in it? I hope you are not going to say anything more than, just drag and drop that icon. Are you? Something like that. Okay, in his mind, it was just the way it has to be implemented is you drag and drop the icon. That's all. Okay, so all the other technical matters, etc., were to be behind were immaterial to him. Okay, so this guy had gone with so much of other technical details, but apparently it was his concept was perhaps not based on the drag and drop. So in one sentence, the entire proposal got sort of reset, and a new direction was given to that. So this is the kind of thing I've heard. That apart, I feel that Apple goes overboard in the way it goes about patenting a lot of details. Sometimes they sound outright silly to me to patent so many features and lock out a product in such a heavy manner with trivial details. And the pricing again is something I feel while they are trying to take care of the customer and all other fronts, they really are charging a very, very exorbitant fee for all their products. That's the other feeling I have. Okay, so with that I stop my review. Thank you.
Okay, those are excellent points, Soumyan. Yeah, my closing thought on this is this, that I think Latesh mentioned that this was really a revolutionary product, and the price point and all that, I agree, but I think there is a reason for it, because Apple wants to create that wow factor. That's where he was talking about the design, right? That people wanted that status. Having an Apple product, it gives you status, and that's why they can charge that high price. But the other thing that this product did, which it doesn't really come out in the speech, but what happened. Being in the tech industry, you always felt that the best. If you're working for a company, a big company, you got to use the latest and greatest gadgets because they could afford it, right? What this product did was that curve. So if you have business here and consumer here, at some point that crossed, that intersection happened, and that intersection happened just when this product came out. That now there was a confluence of different technology. There was the device, then there was the internet communication, and then there's this whole cloud part he doesn't mention it, but it's kind of built into that. You need that. What that did was that if you have a smartphone, this is not a smartphone, but if you have a smartphone, you essentially have the same power that a big corporation has, because you have access to any sort of a cloud-based application. So if you have that device now, you have all the power that you ever need in your palm. And that changed the whole equation in the sense that prior to this product, the way the companies made money with devices, unless it was like a toy, you had to sell it through corporations. What Steve Jobs did was said, screw the corporations, I'm going to sell it directly to the people and give them the power. And once they have the power, the corporations will have no choice but to also adopt this product. They have to bring it into their corporation. And that's exactly what happened. And now all corporations pretty much use Apple. The product that he essentially killed with this introduction of this iPhone was BlackBerry. BlackBerry, after that, BlackBerry was the dominant product. If you ever went to Wall Street or any media, like even Obama still uses a BlackBerry. I don't know, at some point he's going to have to change to iPhone, but he still uses BlackBerry. And when iPhone came out, it essentially was a BlackBerry killer. It killed that BlackBerry because BlackBerry's model was to go through corporations, not through individuals. And with Steve Jobs' iPhone, changed that completely around, saying, no, the power now belongs to the people. They have access to all sorts of applications. And then, of course, with apps and all that, that power now is in the hands of individuals, not within corporations. That point doesn't come out in the speech, but that's essentially what happened, in my opinion, with this product. Julie, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, thank you. I just find your idea of power to the people very refreshing, because one of the things that I am exploring in programs such as this, talking to my friends from across the ocean, is that the internet give power to people like us and smaller companies to be able to do global exchanges. Friendships are established, but also trade. And linking to your earlier speech, that Jack Ma's vision is that he will provide service across the globe for small businesses. I think maybe Steve Jobs is one of the anchors to that direction of movement, and I'm a very big believer in open source. And so one of the things that he did in this in his product is BlackBerry was proprietary software, right, the operating system, but the Android operating system is not open source. So I think Steve's work is not Android, it's still proprietary, I'm not sure. So it'd be interesting to see if he would go, if the company would go open source in some of that stuff. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, iOS is still proprietary. I think what he did is he opened up the API so that people can develop apps, and that's why he created this whole economy around apps, the apps economy. Latesh, any closing thoughts?
Yes, yeah, that's correct, Jay. I think you nailed it when you said that the most important thing that iPhone has done is that it actually shut down. I mean, it reduced the business for BlackBerry. And I still remember, like most of the managers in my early organization, when I was working there, they used to have this BlackBerry, on their, it was put on their trouser belt, and it was really good to see. I mean, if you are a director, then you will have that BlackBerry to use. So it was like a privileged, buy. But now that iPhone has come up with so many features, it has just been kept. I mean, it has just revolutionized the phone industry. It has just reinvented the entire concept of having a phone, a smartphone, rather, not just a phone, a smartphone. Yeah, thanks.
Soumya, closing thoughts?
Yeah, compared to BlackBerry, which had sort of hard keys, and trying to fit something like 90 odd keys into the bottom part of the phone. This was a touch screen, and that was the biggest change in technology as well. I think smartphones with the touch screen became the de facto standard after this got introduced, and nobody ever went back to using a keyboard kind of a situation at all. Okay, with the hard keys. Okay, so that's a major change, and well, I mean. BlackBerry's claim also was the security of the transaction. So that is still perhaps something that they try to claim, even though they were sort of into deep trouble. Later, BlackBerry even tried to position their product for the normal people. In fact, I remember seeing one advertisement, at least in India, where initially some 5 corporate guys in suit are dancing, and then we are the BlackBerry boys, and then slowly all kind of youngsters with casual clothes and fashionable clothes also join the dance, saying we are the BlackBerry boys. Okay, So that kind of thing. But then they never could achieve that kind of popularity which iPhone set in motion. So well, positioning and your product and things like that way has got its own risk. So when BlackBerry positioned it as a business product, they actually shut themselves off from the consumer product, perhaps. Okay, so it was perhaps an unwitting decision. Okay, so when somebody else came and changed the rules, then that is how the interpretation of BlackBerry strategy looked like. Okay, so that was perhaps a sad thing for BlackBerry. Fine, I think the touchscreen certainly made a big difference too. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Somin. Okay, so at this point we'll close out this segment and move to the final segment. Okay. Okay, welcome to Speech Talk Live, episode 16, segment number 3. In this segment, we're going to look at one of the last public speech that Steve Jobs gave. And this was a different kind of a speech. In this show that we do, the first speech we looked at was the Stanford Commencement address that he gives in 2005. Which is considered one of the best commencement speech ever given. Then we looked at the iPhone launch, the first iPhone launch in 2007, which revolutionized just about how we work today and communicate and interact with people. This is, in a way, something that he kicked off, but of course he died 4 months later, but the construction that will take place, it's like a new Apple site that they want to move to in Cupertino. So in this speech is a different Steve Jobs. This is a speech where he doesn't have the control. The control belongs to the council, Cupertino Council, that he's going in front of to show them why they should approve this particular project that is the construction of the new Apple complex that'll house close to 12,000 people. And again, this is the speech where he is very thin, as you can see. He doesn't have that energy that you typically are used to seeing. Nevertheless, it is a very compelling speech. And what he does in this speech, which I think is effective, is by not having that techniques that he typically has at his disposal, yet he still uses some of the same techniques that makes his speech so fun to listen to, as far as using these words to paint pictures. Like, again, his favorite word is always pretty cool. Isn't this pretty cool what we can do? And every little thing that other people will probably miss, he's pointing out that this building that they're building is, again, it's like a launch in a way. It's kind of interesting that we saw the iPhone launch presentation. This is like a building launch. That's what it really is. He's launching a building. Of course, the building hasn't been built yet, but it has to get approved. But if you look at the figures that he's showing, that we're going to have trees. We're going to have lots of trees. It's not just trees. We're going to have lots of trees. We're going to have double the landscape. And these people are like salivating, like, we want it now. Can you do it today? They can't do it today. But that's what it kind of makes you feel like, that after you see that presentation, you want to work there. Or you forget the work there. You just want to see this building, built quickly, so that you can see his vision that he's painting in front of the council. And he's describing all the stuff that would get people excited. And the thing that he's trying to get to these people is that you better approve this, because this is like going to make you famous if you approve this. And how can the people say no to this? And at the end, I just watched the speech part, but then there's a Q&A part. And these people really are sold already. You can tell that this was and typically when I don't know if you ever attended a council meeting, hardly anybody ever attends it, but this one looks like it's completely packed, and there are people you can see in the background taking pictures. So this is an event, and even though he is weak, the speech itself is very strong as far as what he's trying to convey, that this is the future of not only Cupertino, but of Silicon Valley. And he, of course, will never see it completed, but after he's presented, you're kind of rooting for him that they better approve this because this is something we all want to see. So I thought this speech was it's the last speech he gives, yet I think you can see a lot of the Steve Jobs techniques that he uses in the past comes out in this speech. Of course, he's not moving, but still I thought it was a very compelling speech, a very effective speech in the way he delivers it.
Yeah, who is going next? Yeah.
Julie, go ahead.
Okay, so thank you. Yes, Jay, this was a very, very compelling speech and was a very forceful speech. And he carried over many of the techniques. In fact, one of the words he repeated in every 3 speeches was the word gorgeous, gorgeous. But the tone of this meeting was one of poignancy, of a kind of a sweet sorrow. We know that he was very sick. You can see by his gaunt situation. And what I want to point out here is the force that's not in the words, the emptiness or the liminal space between the words, because he is dying. So, in the first speech, he said, live each day as your last. And that's coming to the fore. The other thing he believed in is live to your gut, trust your gut, and change the world, right? And he is offering his legacy here of changing the world in terms of the environment. And he started with this speech was saying, as you know, we've been in Cupertino from a 2 people to a 28,000 people organization, and 12,000 of our people are renting space, and they're not that great at space. So he manipulated people's emotions without saying the word, I love you guys, do this because they're good. I stuck with you when things went great, so now live my vision. And then finally, of course, he always says, live to your gut, right? Let the future speak for itself. Do what you trust. So, but here he is bringing forth a vision of indigenous trees, 80% landscaping, leading edge technology of the glass he's fabricating, and apricot orchards, So I think I would say that the speech was very, very forceful. It wasn't full of dramatic gestures. In fact, he was very quiet and gaunt. But I would say this was his most forceful speech because he spoke of love in the beginning, but he never used the word. But you could feel it throughout, and his dedication and what he wants to leave to the world before his passing. So this was a speech into passage of existence. So that's an empty space, a liminal space. And he did that by evoking that emotion without actually using the words. So his pure presence brought forth that feeling for me. Thank you.
Yeah, that was excellent. Latesh?
Yeah, thanks, Julie J. This was one of I think, the last appearance on TV by Steve after he had gone through the surgery. So he was definitely looking weak, as we can see in the video. He looked really weak and tired, but still, the way he was actually, his replies to the questions that were being raised by the authorities were like having a flavor of humor, as well as there were like real points that he wanted to convey, that Cupertino is going to benefit a lot by having Apple to be setting up the space there. So 150 acres completely being furnished with a lot of trees. He's going to build one of the best architecture marvel. He's saying that one of the only buildings which is completely circle in shape, with even the glasses in circular shape. So That's something that was like completely packed with the latest whatever is the latest offerings that is there in the building structure. So that is going to be incorporated. 4 stories building and 4 stories of parking with energy centers, backup power, and fitness centers, and everything that you can actually imagine a state-of-the-art office building should have. So Cupertino is going to benefit so much from this investment that he's going to make. So when somebody raises that, what is that we are going to get? He said that we being the largest taxpayer in Cupertino, if we go and set up, say, do you really want us to go back from here to somewhere else? So those kind of, he's so confident that he has so much to give, so much to offer. So there is no way that the community is going to refuse any kind of approvals. And I think his speech was, though he was really tired with the kind of procedures that he was going through, but he was still having a lot of punch in what he was talking about. And he had a vision, and the vision was definitely to make a difference not only to society at large, but also to the city where he had been brought up. He wanted to make a difference there itself, giving back to the community, but at a price. So right, that's about it. Thanks. Back to you, Jay.
Thanks, Litesh. Somyan, any thoughts on that speech?
Yeah. Yeah, certainly the points I wanted to talk about have already been mentioned by all of you. This was more like a product design presentation. It was, the entire project was being presented with all its aesthetic beauty and things like that. Even went into small details like the curved glass. Of course, in a large circular building like that, even if the glass were flat and it was made of thousands of flat plates of glass, it would have been perfectly right. There was no need for that glass to have that very slight curvature, etc. But then he went on to say, look, it will be curved glass and so on and so forth. I mean, he perhaps wanted to trigger the people's imagination that way. Then I also thought that he customized. Normally when you know who your audience are and what is their interest, you can always tune your speech in such a way that it will be appropriate to their interest. In a city council like that, they'll be interested in some kind of regulatory concerns or some kind of environmental concerns and things like that. He addresses every one of those things for which they are supposed to be sensitive to, or they are supposed to be basing their decision on. Okay, so he doesn't get into product technology, etc. That is taken for granted. Now he's going to only talk about the flow space index, the amount of water he will use, the amount of electricity he will use, how much he will perhaps burden the utility, how much he will burden the city's infrastructure, and so on and so forth. He's trying to say, I'm going to be low in footprint and all these factors. I already am there in multiple campuses, and I'm going to consolidate them into one. And this is a place that was already owned by HP, and HP had its facility. I'm replacing this with a new facility. When I'm bringing in a new building, that's going to be aesthetically beautiful, and then it is going to add to the city. We are going to be loyal to Cupertino. We are always in Cupertino. We are going to stay with you. So like this, he keeps bringing back this again and again. Then when you say you're going to accommodate something like 12,000 employees there, so for any community and society, 12,000 employees being located there would also mean that there's so much more commerce for their community, and maybe some residential accommodations that are being given away, and so on and so forth. That is going to be attractive to them. Even the trees. If the place was known for that apricot orchard, he wants to trigger that emotional thing, saying that, look, we are going to have the apricot orchard here in the free space, etc. So he places a lot of emphasis on these kind of small details. One of the things that a product designer does is to bring in beauty in the way small details are implemented. That's how product design is sold in terms of ergonomics and aesthetics and such things. So he does exactly that here. That was really a very interesting way by which he sort of customized it to the kind of audience that he was talking to. That was beautiful. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, no, those are excellent points. The one thing I will add is something came up that Somyan had mentioned. This is an example of when he says stay hungry and stay foolish, because Apple already settled in Cupertino. They already have office buildings and stuff. But like Latesh was saying, staying hungry, you can't rest. And as you can see, he's dying, yet he's still hungry, and he's still foolish, right? Like he's doing so many things here that nobody's ever done, and it becomes addictive. I mean, this is a part of who he is, and it's also something that if you feel so strongly about what you're doing, it becomes contagious. Other people will catch it and saying, wow, I really believe his vision. Even I can support it. And what he's really telling Cupertino here is that, do you want to be relevant? Right? We made you relevant. Do you want to be relevant for posterity? You're making a history here. And that is something that people are just not going to walk away from. And what he's telling these council members is that you only have one chance in life to say, I had something to do with that approval. And if you don't get with the program, then you're going to miss out on history. So, and what he's saying is, listen, have I let anybody ever down before? If you notice that speech that he started out with, when he tells a story about how he got a job at HP from just contacting Bill Euler. So he's kind of giving them this whole history of how he's seen this Silicon Valley go from nothing, and now he's taking it to the next level. And that's what he's bringing to this council, that it's in your hands to transition it. I may not be here. I can give you the vision, but it's in your power to make that vision become real. And that's what he's trying to convince them. And who's going to say no to that? And so at the end, that's what this speech is. It's his example of saying staying hungry and staying foolish. Like you're going to have 12,000, nothing like this ever been done. And that's the thing that he's putting in front of this council, that this is what my life is, and I may not have that much more time to live, but I am going to live up to that motto: stay hungry and stay foolish. So that's my closing thought. Julie, any closing?
Before others say, I want to raise one more point. Maybe you can try and answer that if possible. But one thing that was not clear to me is whether this speech was supposed to be so much of a challenging situation. Was the city council going to disapprove things? Was it difficult to get approvals, or was it a very routine that if he just makes a presentation, it's a formality and it will get approved? I couldn't see why a city council will refuse to have organizations such as Apple, and its a new project getting approved. Perhaps it was not so challenging a situation. That's perhaps one thought I had. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a formality in one sense, but it's politics also. So he just wants to make sure what the city council could do. This is the thing, they could delay it, and that's what he doesn't want. So city council could say, we need this study, we need an environmental study, we need water study, we need air pollution study, we need electrical study, how it's going to traffic study. So what he's trying to really do here is that it's not going to be stopped, but it can certainly be delayed, and sometimes delay is a kiss of death. And that's what he's trying to forestall, that don't delay this anymore. Everything has been done. Like, look at the traffic thing. We're going to, I don't know if he addresses the traffic issue much at all, but he's talking about the landscaping, which is important to people in California. So there are so many different angles that he's pursuing, but the main thing I think he's trying to convey, and I can't really answer the history of this, is that the council does have the power to delay approving it, and that's what he doesn't want. Julie?
Yeah, just say thank you. It's a great episode, and I find Steve's. I'm very grateful to you for pointing all this out. I find Steve's whole life to be very inspirational, and now I can appreciate it more, and his speaking skills too.
Latesh, closing thoughts?
Yes, I think all this talks that he gave today, that we saw today, all the videos that Jay has shared about Steve Jobs were like the best of his the speeches that he had given. Especially the Cupertino one was one of his last public talks. So It was good to hear him talk, even though he was so weak and tired, but then he still had the punch in him. So thanks for bringing this up, and yeah, it was one of his good last talks that we have actually heard. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot, Litesh. Somyan, closing thoughts?
Yeah. So the final thought on this last speech was that yes, he chose to personally do this speech to the city council. It was not as if official from his organization who was responsible for building approvals or whatever it is as a routine matter. The guy who was interacting with the city council went and made a presentation. It is Steve Jobs himself with all his global. Popularity and things like that, a tech giant. Okay, so he symbolizes Apple, and he himself personally came and made a plea. Okay, it was not left to a lower level official within his organization. So that way he emphasized the importance he placed to this. So that was also one of the factors I think that one is, that he did to endear himself to the council. Thank you.
Yeah, that's Somin, you just made a very important point, and this is a point that I think also that I completely missed, and I think after you just said it, it made me realize it. He is the head of Apple. I mean, at this point, he is retired but still, people think of Steve Jobs. And what it shows that if you want to make a sale, then the head of the company has to be the best salesman in the company. You can't send some peon to say, get me this deal. If you want to make the deal, you got to be up there and sell it. So again, this shows that he is the best salesman at Apple, and here's how he has to get this particular project sold, and he does it. So that ends this segment. And at this point, if anybody has any last thoughts, I think we only have 4 minutes left before this thing shuts down. So, anybody has any thought on future segments, or how did this go overall? Was this a good idea to focus on one speaker like this, or is it better to split it up with our old segments that we used to do?
I want to say I like the idea of a single theme. Thanks. Sorry.
Okay. So you like the single theme. Okay. Yeah, Litesh?
I have a different opinion, Julie. I think it's better to mix it up with multiple speakers. I think that gives more variety to think about, and also we get different perspectives of a particular and different subjects, different speakers. I think that gives more spice and more interest. That's my thought.
Okay, yeah, that's basically, I agree. That's what we'll do. But once in a while, we just because the reason I did this today is because I review a lot of speeches on the Coursera platform, and Steve Jobs comes up. But you're right, we could have just done one speech, and that would have pretty much covered it. So, yeah, it's something to do differently. We're experimenting, right? We're staying hungry. Sometimes we're following Steve Jobs, staying hungry and staying foolish. So this was one of our foolish idea to try. So
okay, so I just want to say one more thing. I think Steve Jobs was a good topic that provided for the variety. Even though we had three speeches from the same person, they were in 3 different settings and gave 3 different perspectives. Helped us to talk about different aspects. Maybe even the speeches were of a different genre. So that kind of variety may not be available with all speakers. So maybe we can go through 1 or 2 more where this kind of variety is available. Otherwise, you may have to get back to the other kind of speeches themselves. Okay, so that's it. Thank you.
All right. So basically, this was the theme of the thing. I'm going to just send it out. Oh, I messed it up. Stay hungry? Oh, well, that's the New Jersey accent. Okay, this thing is done now. So thank you, everybody, for participating. I appreciate you taking time out and providing your insight into these. I know it's a lot of work, and I really appreciate it. And I'm going to put this out on the Coursera platform because this Steve Jobs comes up quite a bit. And I think we've reviewed, doing 3 speeches, I think we've given a kind of a 360 kind of coverage review of the Steve Jobs and all the different techniques and stuff he uses. So again, thank you everybody for participating, and I'll see you next week. Okay?
Bye.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Simon. Bye.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Enjoy your weekend.
Thanks.